Welcome to Her Palette with Assumpta Dickens, a talk show brought to you by Omega & Co. in collaboration with Oroko Radio. Thank you so much for being here, Zohra.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming.
Of course. How's your day going?
Very relaxed. Very relaxed.
Nice.
No, it's not true. It was actually not true.
And I was agreeing with you.
But, we are trying to just stay calm and get through it.
Yeah, I really love the cap on you. Green is my favorite color.
Thank you. I can tell.
Okay, so I'm just going to ease into your bio. So Zohra Opoku examines the politics of personal identity formation through historical, cultural, and socioeconomic influences, particularly in the context of contemporary Ghana. Her explorations have mostly been through the lens of her camera, expressing her photography through screen printing and alternative photo processing on varieties of natural fabrics. Zohra repeatedly integrates family heirlooms and her self-image into her visual observations of Ghana's cultural memory. So Zohra, again, thank you so much for being here. So please, tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, let me stay in the art kind of space of Zohra. I think art has really just captivated me since childhood. And I also realized, really thinking about our interview and thinking about what we are talking about, is that, looking at this table, which represents, in this case, childhood and, all these different elements childhood, influenced, I think it also always comes back to me in my practice on one point, what really struck me in my childhood. And I think this is Zohra as an artist, that what came to me naturally is also now coming back naturally now.
That's amazing. Zohra was born in 1976 in East Germany and lives and works in Accra, Ghana, and is represented by Marian Ibrahim Gallery, Chicago, Paris, and Mexico City.
Yeah.
Zohra, I fondly refer to her as a seasoned artist, well-traveled with global market world experiences, and just recently showed at Giants, an exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum featuring the Dean collection of Swiss Beats and Alicia Keys, and her works have been collected by renowned institutions. That's amazing. I want to know the evolution of your artistic practice. Where did you start? Where did it all begin for you?
So beginning was probably already, as I said, in childhood. I was really privileged that my mother fed into anything what I wanted to do. So I had so many kind of creative expressions already during my upbringing that I can tell today that this also gave me a lot of things to try out and understand, whether it's dancing, whether it was playing an instrument, whether it's drawing and painting, doing handcrafts, sewing. So when I studied fashion design, I was actually finding my way rather into departments like, comic and drawing and photography. So even though I studied fashion, I was very much focused on so many other things, layering around and lingering around. I stayed with fashion, but I had the opportunity to peek in so many departments that I spent so much time in the darkroom and in a photo lab that photography was then a very big theme for me. So becoming a fashion designer, I think that was one of my big dreams. And I wanted to be really bold about it and worked for many years as a stylist, as an designer and also did window installations, and everything around captured my eye, like with fashion I was interested in. But then I realized that this was not just about fashion, it was for me also about expression. And I came to the conclusion that fashion alone can't like feed into my needs to dig deeper and to dive into like something what I really want to understand. Especially me growing up as a black person in East Germany, I had like a lot of identity kind of questions, and this became more and more like present while I was growing up. So I decided after, I think like probably 10 years in the fashion industry, to change my course and be an artist. And I think a lot of people saw it before. I have been also invited to art spaces and art talks. It just didn't, arrive with me so quickly that I am an artist. So, and at this point, I also decided to move to Ghana, and like my artist practice really started strongly to evolve here.
That's beautiful. Can you tell me a bit about your mediums? And the integration of, the fashion design background and how it translates into all the different, crafts that you work on. This team is just beautiful.
I mean, these are like all try-ons and experiments and collages, and we're just, looking into, ways of how can we, bring like different like facets of the Ashanti culture, but also of my childhood and also of what we found here in children workshops. How can we bring it all together to express the new course where we look into color politics of children and how they identify themselves with the skin tone, with their own skin tone. So my medium was always a little bit like wild, I would say. I was never really fixated on just one thing, but I think through fashion, textile became like really like I would say like the thriving force. And then photography could be used to find the imagery which express like actually like the rich culture in Ghana, which is always my first inspiration to research and to like to learn about. And so bringing that together, I think the first time I was printing in an artist residency in the Netherlands, I realized like this is the perfect match, it's the perfect marriage of textile and photograph, and
that's
how
right.
how this the imprint of the image in the textile actually having a conversation and like really playing with the texture and with the layers of also print on top of each other. And later I started also to incorporate much more of like the style of collaging, of, applications and putting different elements together into a narrative. So when I realized how beautiful it is to have like an imprint of a photograph on textile, I was never going back to anything else. And that is definitely also my, I would say, main focus. But then I'm always interested also in wood, in found wood or new wood. I also look into other things we find around here in Ghana, which are representing very much the artifacts and, beauty of the clothes in the ceremonial acts. So I find myself always like wondering and discovering something new. And sometimes I'm like, what if like my ideas are running out and I don't find anything new? But it's like always like, oh my God, like there is so much in the pipeline, and it's like it's always overwhelming, like how many things I would like to incorporate into a body of work. So I always have to stop myself and then reselect and be very
Intentional.
intentional, exactly, and not just widely playing around. It also creates like a connection and meaning to what I want to express.
The very first studio visit that I had, I remember we had a conversation about the body of work that you did that had like the 3 chapters. I want to know the story behind those chapters, because I remember being quite fascinated by all of those chapters. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 4 chapters, and it was basically inspired on the Book of the Dead, which was already written in chapters. And I realized that since it represented my healing journey, I wanted to have every chapter quite focused on one of my kind of emotional kind of phases I had during that time. And then also, like, yeah, it reflected in a different way on how I found also details in the ancient Egypt Book of the Dead, and all these little elements in the tomb painting, in the Book of the Dead, the hieroglyphs, like how I can really like learn also understanding the mythology. So I was reading a couple of books, and I was lucky to have one which is from the Brooklyn Museum, translated, a Book of the Dead, which gave me also the opportunity to use text quotes out of it for titles, to represent also a little bit of the feeling in each work. So, so the chapters basically give also a focus on how I photographed or how I collaged, how the colors are coming together, and so it's basically also a little bit like the journey itself. Yeah.
Yeah. When you like the viewer observes like your work, there's a lot of like self-portraiture in there. So I want you to touch a little on the depiction of yourself in those works and what it really means for you.
Yeah, yeah. I think the self, that's also like the discovery since since I actually started working in any kind of creative field. Like I always wanted to discover like how are we defining ourselves as a person, how are we influenced by our upbringing, by our environment, and by our cultural background. And since I had a lack of a lot of knowledge since childhood until the wall came down, because I grew up in East Germany, which is was then the communist part of Germany. I was not familiar with any black culture or Ghanaian, people around me. So it was very hard for me actually to find myself as a African. And that's why also the self-portrait always recreate for me a term of belonging and a term of kind of blending in and being part of a community or of a place where I'm finding myself in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I was going to be biased and ask which of your body of works you feel most connected to, but I think that would be such a disservice, because I think to even be able to put anything out there, there has to be that inherent connection with that work, right? But I'm intrigued to know what this body of work is about, which is like beautifully displayed in front of us.
It's a new body of work, but I have it on my mind since ages, like since a very, very long time. Because very often I go back into childhood photographs, and because I just love like this kind of, it's a very nostalgic kind of habit. Very often when I'm at my mom's, especially, we are going, and there's like, she has boxes full of like actually printed black and white photographs. What we don't do anymore today, we have everything in our devices. And I always think about like, oh, what could I do with this and that? So it's something where I can also see myself as a child, and I recognize every time something, some details on a photo. And I know like from my dolls that very often I was changing the faces of my dolls to, painting them and changing the hair so they look more like me. Eventually, I also looked into one of my children books, which has a story which was very empowering for me, but it actually meant to be for the boys who are teasing a black boy, and then they get punished. So that was like also another component. I felt like, okay, like really looking into how I felt like as a black child, in my kind of neighborhood. Plus, observing Ghanaian children in communities having Caucasian-looking dolls, and eventually I wanted to know where are these dolls coming from. So we started with the FCA together, a research, really looking into the communities, into marketplaces, and archives, talking to people, and also having a children workshop, and just being very, yeah, curious about like just this particular thing of where is our black doll. And the title "Give Me Back My Black Doll" is inspired by Léon-Gontran Damas, and he is one of the finders of the Négritude movement, and I was very very impressed by that poem, and I wanted to bring this also into the conversation. I saw like a lot of chances also to have a conversation with other artists, how they perceive also the environment and how they grew up with what toys and dolls they had to play and how it influenced them. And in the end, we would love to have an exhibition, of course, together. It's quite a long journey now, because the first time I had the idea in 2018, and then COVID happened, and then we had a long break. And in the last year, we had like, the research phase and really looked into data and brought everything together. And also the doll test, which is known with African American children, the original one conducted in the 1940s, had like also an impact on my questioning with the children I meet. So we gave them 4 dolls to pick from, and 2 white dolls and 2 black dolls, like 2 boys and 2 girls. And it turned out that the boys, the tendency was to the black doll, to the black boy doll, because they love the color of the skin and they love the how gentle the doll looks like, and also the fabrics, while the girls most were attracted by the white blonde doll. And this already gives us an idea how the
perception,
the beauty ideal has kicked in a very early age. Plus also very often parents like the children to play more with white dolls. That also comes to it, where we were thinking about probably parents should be part of the children workshop too, to like really talk about why why are we seeing each other like this and not differently. So for me, it was always a question of who am I, and how can I embrace myself and love myself? Because there was a time I always questioned, why do I look different? Why is my hair like this? And why do I move differently or dance differently? And especially when you are in a Caucasian environment, you always feel like a little bit funny about yourself. And this is also something I want to learn, like how can we bring more consciousness and more awareness into the children. It's like, education and upbringing to actually have an impact also on their adulthood.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Tell us a bit about what we're looking at, the materials on the table.
So it's a mixture of so many things. So I mean, here are the collages I did. There is a doll I have dyed into black with a local dye, and I photographed it, and she probably becomes also the protagonist of the works. We will dye 200 dolls for like as a performance, and create an installation out of it. I wanted to find a local ink or a local dyeing practice to look into, like, local handcrafts actually, to bring something in, but then put it on the dolls coming from China in, big imports, plus home-use dolls, which are also mostly white-looking from, second-hand dolls. And through the dyeing, we actually make an effort to go back to who we actually are, and also all these beautiful local handcrafts we have. So we took the clothes off, we cut the hair off, and we changed her into a local material. And this is going to happen with a lot of dolls. And so this is something
200, right?
so this is going to be not only as a video and as an installation, but also as an image. It will reappear in my prints. And so that's why I say protagonist, because this is like actually my starting point, looking at a doll. Besides, I also developed a few sculptures, which are part of like my new practice, working with bronze and creating sculptures, what has also a very big standing in West Africa. And I had a few sculptures also in my last couple of works. So I wanted to bring back and look into the dolls we collected in the communities, and then turn them into something what is very local, these little Ashanti figures which were used to weigh the gold. And also, again, bringing back something what is, a very traditional fact, and then putting it on something very contemporary and, something what is also quite disturbing in our space.
That's amazing. At the end of the day, what would you define as success from this entire body of work? What would be the success of it, the outcome of it?
I think like one of my vision is to continue with the children workshops as a regular kind of practice, to also engage children more into something what we almost like forget to do, like really just creating and playing.
Be childlike.
Yes, and I did this so much, and I felt like the children were so focused and so passionate about creating their doll. I could see that like it's possible, like after a couple of days they completely changed their mind. Like I asked them to draw someone they look up to, someone who is inspiring you or is like very supportive in their life. And very few were not understanding that the drawing should really represent the person and not just like, a cartoonish kind of idea. So they started drawing like a blonde girl with blue eyes. So we always came back to that kind of beauty ideal where they say, oh, this is my best friend. And then the best friend is sitting beside them, but the best friend doesn't look alike at all. And so it was a really good exercise for them to understand, like really look at yourself and don't look at any kind of, image from a magazine or an advertisement or, a white Barbie doll. We want to really look at ourselves. And that was like a really beautiful process for all of us. Yeah.
So Zohra, it's safe to say that you've had an array of both local and foreign experiences, right? Being the seasoned artist that you are. How have these experiences influenced your artistic practice, particularly in relation to both your local and foreign heritage?
Very simple, like right here, right here. It's all in me. It's all in me, My German background, my Ghanaian background is, that's the marriage of the two, and like I can't deny it. But I think the more I traveled to Ghana, the more I realized how much I seek like this kind of really grounding, warm feeling to be in Ghana. In Germany, I never felt the same way, and I probably would also never be able to work the same way as I do it here. Just also from all the things I learn and meet, and also the support I find here. It's a very different experience and feeling, and I can say like I really appreciate what I had during my upbringing. But then when it really comes to working and interacting and living in Germany, I feel a lack of impulses. I want to have like to actually be inspired as an artist, and that comes in here in Ghana, and that's why I also decided to be based here.
To live here. Okay. You recently participated in the show Giants, right? From the Dean collection of Sweet Beats and Alicia Keys at the Brooklyn Museum. and you showcased your work on such a global stage. Now, how do you believe that this type of exposure impacts the visibility and recognition of Ghanaian artists internationally?
Well, I think it's a very special show in terms of looking at the collectors, right? About like looking at the collector standing, like starting with the Ghanaian artist and their recognition internationally. I think there is a huge recognition already. And we have a lot of shows like solo and group exhibition where Ghanaian artists are exhibited and included. I just see like how powerful it is that like this power couple, also coming from an African American space, collaborating with a space in Brooklyn, which is like, of course, that museum in Brooklyn, representing space for the community, representing, I would say also, like art, which is especially also for the community and not just like art in general, really having touching topics and themes which are very important also to inspire African Americans. And it's a very strong kind of energy there because they really make an effort to bring together international, local and black art. And this is probably like a very powerful kind of collaboration to have the deans exhibiting their work there and being part of it. I'm definitely very honored. I can see that there are a lot of black collectors now, but then having like also the amount of works and having also the guts to really come out and making a show, that means a lot. And I think that's very impressive also to follow. And I'm very sure they also inspired other collectors to do also very bold, actions like this. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel like you were received?
So I have to say I have like a very strong bond already with a lot of like people and artists in New York. It was not my first time. So for me, it was actually also like coming to one of my homes, coming to a place where I have friends and people who I recognize since a long time. Either I follow them or they follow me, or we are friends, or so there are there are conversations with some of the artists already, and and the deans are just like a very warm, welcoming nature.
Yeah, it sounds like it's taking you some time to really just cultivate those relationships that you can really just look at a space and call it home because of that relationship that you've built, And I think that something a lot of emerging artists, need to know is that art is a practice and it takes time. Cultivating that practice in itself takes time. Cultivating the relationship in itself takes time as well. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Living and working in Ghana, how do you find the local art scene conducive to artistic growth and expression, especially for women artists?
Yeah, so I think like I can like talk from my perspective first, because I also feel like through my upbringing in Germany and then coming here, I was not part of the place from the very beginning, but I have had like just like really amazing experience in terms of how I have been perceived and supported and been guided. Especially people like the FCA Ghana and Ibrahim Mahama, Bernard Akwe Jackson, they have like been really here for me. And it's like I know them since a long time. Sir Black, for instance, too. Like I mean, I could mention so many, and I don't want to actually forget anyone, but it's like I was here and I like immediately had like people I could relate to. I think that was also for me like one of the reasons why it was also a reason to stay, because there is like this community who has my back. And other than that, I wouldn't survive all the obstacles and difficulties, especially in the first years here. Yeah.
Speaking of obstacles, difficulties, how do you feel more generally when you step outside of yourself? Like, how is it conducive to women artists in general?
So I think for me, I am probably not very shy when it comes to asking for what I want or what I need when it comes to my art practice. I believe that I just knew what I want, and I was like a go-getter. And it took also some time to really understand what I want, like for myself as an artist, like how I want to evolve in my practice,
Time.
Yeah. So like the first years, probably like, let's say 3-4 years, it was a little bit like wandering, trying out, experimenting, talking to people, like also actually learning the space and learning the culture. Like I had so much to learn, or I still have so much to learn. And question I asked, nobody would probably ask, because for them it's such a natural thing to understand, because that's what surrounds you like your whole life. And after that, I believe that I could see that I was mostly the only female artist in the space, surrounded by male artists, and also started questioning what is happening, where are the women. In terms of support, when I meet female artists, like I'm there, but I don't know what their experience is, one-on-one, with other places and spaces. But I understand very much from, exchanging, how's it called, memories of, for instance, studying at KNUST, or, trying to like just achieve something, that female artists are always coming a second, and male artists are much more addressed when it comes to opportunities. And I really hope that, this is also going to change through female artists coming out here.
Yeah. As a seasoned artist with global market experience, what advice would you offer to emerging women artists in Ghana seeking to establish themselves in the global art world, like you've done?
I think there are so many things I would like to advise, especially like then more I work and grow and also make connections, new connections and new experiences. I see also much more things I would advise myself, I would have advised myself.
Your younger self?
To my younger self, exactly. Okay. So like, first of all, always be bold, because I think that's like one of the things we have to be, like bold in your practice, bold in your expression, bold as, when it comes like representing yourself in the community, in talks and interviews and whatever it is, just be like present. Be just very present. Secondly, I think what I had naturally, find an ally in your family who supports the cause of your vision, because we are still facing a very traditional setup in Ghana, where something different is expected from women than from men. And if you have someone in a family who supports you, you have hopefully the chance not to compromise your time with foolishness. Don't compromise who you are. Like, really use your feminine energy, for what you want. And know always when you have to use your masculine energy to push through and to be much more egoistic, like men can be. Because that's also a thing. Women are very gentle and very polite, and especially girls brought up here, coming up with the mostly shy nature. And to overcome this, like, you really have to like step out of your comfort zone. And coming to the next, like, while you're bold, you have to be so authentic, because nobody believes you if you're not that what you actually really want to share with the world. your opinion counts, like your voice counts, and even if your voice is not as loud right now, it has like the same importance like any male voice in our community. You just have to make sure people can hear you. And I think then also you are respected, you know, and then we come to the last, follow your intuition. Like your female intuition is the most powerful tool you have in your practice. If you don't use it wisely, you will be driven over because you're making decisions which are not good for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very, very sound advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any initiatives that you have created to support women artists?
Well, I have like very little also allies, I would say. So, I mean, I think for us women in the art community, it's easy to connect because we are not so many, like us, for instance. So I would say like also for, you know, female artists, always find the women inspiring you, follow them and really understand their, how's it called, like their routines, and then also somehow like their beliefs, you know, because once you see like how other women navigate the space, it's also much easier for yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to actually have this with a lot of female artists together to, you know, like to advise and to exchange. And this is also one of my ambitions to be there. Like when someone calls or wants to visit me, I'm here. You know, I'm always here to advise. If you want to, you know, show me something and you just need my opinion, I'm there. So that was like my starting point, and I'm very proud of this like female community I have around me, where I can also be there and give back because I have received also so much support. Now we want to create a space here for artists to come here for a couple of weeks and stay in my studio while I'm traveling, and to
Let's be very specific. Women artists.
women artists from the continent.
Women artists from the continent.
I really would love to offer my space because when I'm not here, most of the time it goes a little bit low, but we have the facilities. We would like to utilize the space and also our resources, and to just give someone the solitude, but also the network to really create something here and just do whatever you want to do.
What are your hopes and visions for the future of the art scene in Accra, and the role of both seasoned and emerging Ghanaian artists on the global stage? I think we're talking about the distinction between the two roles, as an emerging artist and also as a seasoned artist. So what do you think that the roles each of them play on a global scale, right? And your hopes and visions for the Accra art scene?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Ghana, sometimes about my hope, I don't know. Lately, we are in a governmental change. I don't think we will expect any support culturally for our, art spirits, but we have spaces who can show us that we can actually do it ourselves. Like little ecosystems starting to develop. I love Ibrahim's space. It's like a great example for creating your own art ecosystem, which we can already look into it, which have like a very great impact on, like all the movements coming to Ghana and want to really engage with the art community. I love how Buke has the festival in Wa. I love how we have now different artist residencies popping up made by artists. I love we have different galleries, and we have also independent people and creator spaces, institutions.
And collectives.
And collectives, thank you. So I think there is a movement which we can't deny is very strong, very powerful. and we have to probably do everything privately with our own resources. So I hope that this can grow, like those ecosystems can grow and then eventually really connect like a spider web, you know, and being much more stronger together and having maybe outcomes, festivals like Poku in Dakar and Senegal, where, you know, it is like a mutual understanding of, you know, who we are. Plus, maybe there will be an art patron who will build a contemporary art museum for us, because I think Ghana would be ready for it. So, yeah, saying that, also, I hope that we will have much more female artists along the journey, also being part of that ecosystem.
Just hearing you speak, I remember that you recently did the Dakar show. And when I reflect on it, you're actually one artist that, even though you do have international shows, you try as much as possible to still have shows within the continent. So there's Dakar, there's this, there's that. Like, you try as much as possible to just participate, you know, just throughout the continent. So I want to know, like, your experience, just not the international, but even here on the continent, and how has that been cross country to country?
Yeah, I feel like there could be much more spaces also where we could have like local shows or shows in on the continent. But yeah, we hopefully will get there. For me, it's very important, and especially Dakar is like has such a high cultural standing for me when it comes to like the art community. It's very strong, and also the international community, Black community traveling in for this is also very supportive and very. For me, very nurturing, and it was a beautiful experience then, and also seeing like how when we have, you know, things going on here, like how like large the interest is. It's all in the growing, and I believe that, you know, like knowing who you are and doing something here and then going out and showing internationally, that's probably the best recipe than just like, you know, wandering like all over the place, but actually not sharing with your own people.
I think that for some, it might actually be the reverse. It sometimes tends to feel like you're not necessarily taken seriously as an African artist in your own country, unless you're like, you know, you go internationally and showcase and then come back. I think this experience might be quite different for you.
Okay, but maybe it's also because, again, I have to say I'm not just a Ghanaian artist.
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
And when I started here, I think like the first exhibition I did in Jamestown in the Community Theatre Center, and for me it was especially important to be in a very local community and share also my work with the community, especially with the children, to also not only create art but also to create a conversation, and and that gives me also much more to learn about myself as an artist, and also to show when I would travel, because everything what I do here I can also show somewhere else again, because like once you have a body of work, or once you have, you know, a certain repetition, you can bring it everywhere, you know.
Yeah, and it's beautiful to see, you know, the community that you've created, and the people that assist you day in, day out in your studio, and how it makes everything just come together and feel home for you. And our little studio assistant, Adipa, is not here today.
No.
Else should be everywhere on the table.
I know, right?
Yeah, but I guess that leaves you feeling quite wholesome, right?
Yeah, very, very indeed. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for just having this conversation. And I'm wishing you the best of luck with Queen Dode's solo residency.
Thank
I'll probably be the first one in the program. Well, To be continued. We'll come soon. Thank you so much, Nora. This was a great conversation.